Hi everyone, I'm super excited to be here. Today we're going to talk about MBA admissions application mistakes, what not to do when you apply for a top MBA program. Let's start this presentation. I hope you're excited like I am. Hope you can hear it. I'm really excited. So there's many mistakes that you can avoid, and we're going to talk about all these for top ranked MBA programs. I love this slide, very nice. Okay, my name is Shimri Winters. I'm the head of the strategy here at ARINGO MBA Admissions Consulting. We're a boutique MBA admissions consulting firm helping candidates just like you get into top MBA programs. We're very small. We like to screen our candidates and only work with people that we strongly believe will get in. That's why our statistics are so good. We're also happy to be very good. Helping you with the entire MBA admissions cycle from chances assessment, school selection, working with you on the application, interview prep, scholarships, school negotiations, whatever's needed, all the communications with the school. Check us out on aringo.com. This was my only marketing slide. Let's get cracking with this presentation. So again, I think it's very important to kind of understand why there's sometimes strong applicants that just don't get admitted. Very strange. We get a lot of people that come to us and say, I applied last year. I should have got in. I had a perfect GMAT. I had a very good application. But then we have a ding analysis service, and we kind of see many of these mistakes that were done. And I'm going to try and point some of them out. So the first thing is why, this is the agenda, why strong applicants still get rejected. Then, I'm going to actually talk about some of the main mistakes. You can read them here, but I'm going to go into all of them. Mistakes choosing the, wrong schools, wrong programs, the wrong careers, wrong essay material, wrong recommendation, lots of issues also till interviews. And at the end, I'll also try and give you some suggestions on how to build a strong MBA application. So I hope you're excited. I am. And I like the graphic on the right. It actually shows what happens with, and I think it kind of explains top MBA programs. They get thousands of applicants. I think Harvard gets 11 or 12,000 applicants in strong years. So a lot of applicants. They might have a few hundred places, even in smaller programs. So they get a few thousand applicants, a few hundred places. And there's a very big funnel, okay? And there's a very big filtering process. And you don't want to get rejected throughout that process. So let's talk about that a bit more. So like our first slide is kind of understanding the main reasons. And again, I think reason number one, without me looking into your application, if someone rings me and says, oh, I didn't get into Stanford. I should have got into Stanford, but I didn't. So Stanford has a 6% acceptance rate. So 94 out of 100 people will ring me and say, oh, bummer, I didn't get into Stanford. And, that's how it is. Okay, maybe you were a very good candidate. Maybe you were a borderline candidate. But, they decided to go with a different 6%. So some schools, just have a very, very big screening criteria. And maybe you could have done things better, but maybe you just couldn't have, okay? For example, I'll just give a very simple example. Maybe your GMAT score didn't make some kind of cut. And schools will never say, we have a minimum GMAT. They'll always say, yes, it's holistic. It's just one factor. But if you come from an overrepresented background and have a 500 GMAT, you're not going to get into an M7 school. I think that's pretty clear. And if I have a 600 GMAT, will that be enough? Probably not. And if I have a 625, probably not. But if I have a 635, maybe they'll... So I'm saying, we don't know. Maybe a certain school will just say, oh, I've seen other candidates like you. You're great, but I've seen other candidates with a higher GMAT, so I'm going to give them a chance. So that already shows that if there's a big screening process, it's just going to be very hard to get into some schools. So that's one point. Second point is, a lot of people really think, if I just show my strong resume, I have a great work experience. I worked for a consulting firm, for McKinsey or BCG or for investment bank, Goldman Sachs, I've got such a great brand in my resume. That should, guarantee me admission. No. Okay. And let's think also why not? Because there's other applicants with a very similar resume. and you have 3 years of experience, she has 4. You manage 2 people, she managed 3. You have a 740 GMAT, she has a 750 GMAT. So even if you have a very good profile, there might be someone with a kind of similar profile that's a bit better than you. So having a good resume or even good grades doesn't kind of guarantee you admissions to top schools. Remember that the admissions committee kind of look at the full application and try and get the full picture. So what you've done in the past is very important. Your academics are very important, but also your reasons for why you want an MBA and what you want to do in the future. All these really count towards your success. The success criteria is to move a stage in the MBA application. And there's also another factor that you probably have the least control on, which is your background. Okay, and now schools won't admit it, but they're looking for a diverse class. And diversity can be the country you come from, the industry you come from, your university you came from, your current industry, your current family situation. So they will look for a diverse class. And that's why in some years, it might be very, very hard for a Deloitte consultant or a PwC accountant to get into Harvard because they just have a lot of those and they're trying to build a diverse class. And there's always a human factor as well. Okay, that's super important. When someone's kind of reading your application, I used to interview for London Business School. I used to look for like academics, professionalism, but also for like something else. And that something else is a bit hard to kind of give specific words or specific criteria for. But that something else was definitely something that I used to look for in candidates, and I used to try and make sure that the candidates I passed had. Are they someone that I would like in my class? Would I like to sit with this person for a beer? Very important at London Business School, after school and discuss with him my future startup. So that's a few reasons why sometimes a very strong applicant might not get in. And what you should do, even if you're a strong applicant, is show a lot of clarity. You exactly know why you want an MBA program. You know why you want this MBA program, their MBA program. You fit their culture. You've read about the culture. And you have a clear vision of what you want to do in the future. Okay, these are very, very important factors when you think about how to write your application. Okay, now let's go into a lot of these factors. The school fit is super, super important. So let's actually think about which schools are fitted for you. Let's say your career goals are to work in the Silicon Valley in high tech. It doesn't make much sense to go to a school that's based in Madrid. Okay, so let's think a bit, might be a good school there, but it just doesn't fit to what you were saying about your career goal. If you're kind of a big city person, it doesn't make much sense to apply to a rural school, okay? If your whole essay is about how you fit in a big city. If you're soloist and you're very good, you're an autodidact, you studied things by yourself, you work best when you're by yourself, and you're a hard worker, you got an 800 GMAT and you work best, schools who put a lot of emphasis on collaboration, on team work, you're not going to get into them. So that's why school fit is very, very important. And when admissions committee look at your application, they will check if what you're saying, what your career goals are, what your strengths are, what your character attributes are aligned with what they're looking for in candidates. So choosing the right school and fitting your stories to that school are crucial. Like we said, if something doesn't match, your chances are going to decrease. 800 GMAT, perfect academics, 4.0 GPA, all great. But if you're looking to get into, if you want to be an astronaut in NASA, nearly every MBA will say, okay, but why are you applying to us? That's great, but why are you applying to us? Same again with the culture, same with the industry, same with the employer, same with the geography. Okay, so you kind of need to make sure you're applying to the right school. I think this is smart for you. And then you need to show this to the school. Let me also explain, and also we said about diversity and composition, they're trying to build a very nice heterogeneous class. And you might just not fit into that because they might have your kind of background. May it be a engineer or a finance guy or a guy, there's a lot of men. So if you're a woman, that already helps. But they might have a white finance Wall Street guy or some other consultant, German consultant from Big Four, and they just might have one or two of those, and they might say, I don't want to recruit right now another one or another five or another 30. So that's definitely important. So how do you tackle this? First of all, research the programs. Obviously, I think it's also good for you to kind of apply to the programs that you think will match your fit and what you're looking for. But also, when you research the programs, now this is a good opportunity to kind of tell the schools that you are a strong applicant and you can show them not just that you need an MBA, but also that you need their MBA. And their MBA is a fantastic fit for you, and you are a fantastic fit for the MBA. I want to just say one more word about that fit. So one of the criterias that goes into the MBA rankings is called yield. Yield is the percentage of people I offered them a place that got admitted, and out of those, let's say I offered 100 places, how many of those candidates actually came to my MBA program? So I hope you won't be surprised. No school has 100%. A lot of schools have around 50%. They offer 100 places, but a lot of those candidates have been accepted to other programs. Usually successful candidates will be accepted to multiple programs. Some of them, maybe their plans have changed. Some of them don't want to come for an MBA if they don't get a full ride scholarship, or maybe their startup succeeded, or maybe their boss offered them an offer that they cannot refuse, or their spouses or someone else, or shit happens, okay? Life changes. So the MBA programs, apart from checking that you're bright and smart and good academics, good all that, they also want to make sure that you really, really want to come to their program. And they don't just want to. This is part of the MBA ranking. So this is very important for them to think, to assume that if they're going to offer you a place, you're going to actually come for the MBA. And that's also to do with the fit. Okay, is this the best MBA for you? Because if you're saying, oh yeah, I love MIT, and if I'm not going to get into Harvard, MIT has always been my second best. That's not going to get you into MIT. Okay, because they're going to worry, and what happens if you do get into Harvard? So we're wasting a space. We're wasting this yield. We're hurting our MBA rankings by offering you a space. So you need to be convinced that there's a good school fit, but also the school has to be convinced that there's a good school fit for you. Let's continue. The test scores. So the test scores are very, very important. And GMAT or GRE can account for around 30% of your out of 100 points, okay, 30, 35% even, out of your 100% or 100 points of acceptance chances, okay, or assessment. So let's again just give I love numbers, so let's just give numbers. Let's say that they assess every candidate, and if you get 70 points or above, you get an interview, okay? So the assessment is out of 100, and GMAT can be 35 points. So let's say you have a very low score. Maybe your entire application is amazing, but on the GMAT, you got 5 out of 35, okay, in their assessment. Let's say you got a 600 GMAT. That's not in the old GMAT, okay? So it's like a 555, 545 in GMAT Focus Edition. That's not a good score for the top MBA programs. Their average is, 675, 685, and you got 100 points left. So this just might not be enough. And like I said, schools, get 10,000 applicants. The easiest thing for them, so easy, is let's just say below 600, let's just cut them off. Bam, they only got now 5,000 applications to go through. So that's so easy, and the GMAT, GRE scores are very, very important. I would say that if you have less than 40 points, 40 and below points from the school's average, you're in trouble. Okay, I'm not saying you won't get in, and ARINGO specializes in working with candidates with low GMAT. Check out our logo. This is what we do, and we work with a lot of candidates with lower than average GMAT and GRE scores. I can give you a million examples. I think we have a whole website page on that with low 600s that got into M7 school. But again, just to be honest, this is the unique cases, because if you look at the schools medians, they kind of usually give an 80%. They say 80% of our candidates will have this GMAT and GRE score, and it's usually around the 675, 685 average. So the 80% will have 655 to 715. That's the average. If you're out of this range, below this range, that might be an issue. Okay, so that's definitely something I would like to avoid if you can. GMAT is really important. It's like the one test that can predict your MBA success. Okay, I know it sounds strange. It's just a test. Why is this predicting stuff? By the way, if you don't want to take the GMAT or GRE, check out my other video on MBAs with GMAT waivers. There's definitely the possibility these days with a strong academics and strong experience to get into top MBAs without a GMAT, but that is a different route. And if you're trying to get in with the GMAT, but your GMAT or GRE are a bit low, that's a problem. The other thing is the English proficiency. And this is another factor, but it's unlike the GMAT where I said it was like 30 or 35% out of your 100 points or 100% of assessment. This is usually a yes-no kind of thing. So this is even worse than the GMAT because the filtering happens very quickly. So the TOEFL has recently changed, the beginning of 2026, but a lot of schools ask for a 5.0. In the old TOEFL, this used to be 100. And if you have 95 or 4.5 in the TOEFL, this just isn't high enough. And a lot of schools will just say, no, this doesn't meet our criteria. Now, some schools don't have a minimum, but what I would do, I would look at similar schools and kind of see what their minimum is. That is the minimum the schools are looking for. Okay, if we look at the IELTS, most schools will ask for 7.0. Some of the schools, like in the UK schools or NCAD, will ask for 7.5. And even London Business School, who doesn't have a minimum, will be looking for those kinds of scores. So it's very, very hard to get in if your score is lower. Again, I have to admit, I have seen many exceptions. I had this year, Harvard published on their website that they're asking for a minimum of 109 in the TOEFL. I've had 106 that got in. I have now someone with 108 that received the interview. Okay, in 2 weeks you can ask me if he got in. So it means he wasn't, and the person in the previous round with 106, they weren't filtered out. But again, I would say these are the unique cases. Both of them have very strong profiles and very strong applications. I helped them write them. So these are the unique cases and not kind of the common one. So scores matter, okay? I don't know how to say this again. And like I put here, the leading program averages. And if your if your scores are below the minimum that you can see here, yeah, that's an issue. Okay, the next kind of pitfall is a career goal. So nearly every top program will have essays, and nearly every top program will ask you, why MBA, why now? Okay, so a lot of why MBA questions, but also what are your career goals? By the way, even when they don't ask specifically what are your career goals, a lot of times when you're asked why MBA, you should probably slip in your career goals. Now, what did I say before? A NASA astronaut, yes, is less good. Not because it's not interesting. I would love to be an astronaut. But employability, like we discussed before, the yield, which is a very, very small factor in the MBA rankings, but still every factor is important for the schools. Employability is the #1 factor in all rankings, okay? US News, Financial Times, the previous Economist, okay, in all important, Bloomberg, in all important rankings, the employability is the #1 factor. It comes in different ways. One criteria is what is the percentage of MBA grads that found a job within 3 months of graduation. So that's kind of employability. By the way, the numbers are 95, 97, 92%. Yes, the numbers are very high. And sometimes those other percentages weren't really looking for a job. I think that's I don't think I know it's very important. The second criteria is usually salaries, etc. So, and how much a salary increased from before the MBA. So it's all around this employability. Now, I'm right now I'm working with a very senior candidate, and he's just over 40. And I actually reached out to some of the regular MBA programs. There are special programs that would fit him better, and he knows this. But I just reached out to some of the regular MBA programs and said, like, he would like to join the class. I understand the average age is 28. He would like to join the class. And some of the answers were actually really interesting. The answers were like, but I don't think McKinsey would employ someone who's 40 years old post MBA. They're looking for 28-year-olds. Or I think it would be very hard for us to help him find a job. Now, I didn't mention that he was going to use career services in Colombia to find him a job. But this is one of the most important things when the admissions committee look at your application. Do they think you're employable post MBA? Apart from being employable, they want to see something very specific, because why would AdCom start thinking, oh, yes, he's employable. I have a friend, or I know Deloitte come to recruit on campus. I think if he sent them the CV. No, they don't want to think. They're screening thousands of applications. They don't have time to think. They might, they're investing a few minutes in your application. So they want to see very clear goals, and then they want to think, are they doable or not? So, for example, a goal like, yeah, I think I want to go to product management. That's too vague. Okay, watch my video on product management jobs after MBAs, but that's way too vague. It needs to be very specific. I want to work in product management in autonomic vehicles in a company like Tesla. Okay, it has to be very specific. Schools really want you to articulate, the specific goal, the short-term, the long-term goal, the geography you want to work in, the company you might want to work in. They know this might not happen. That's fine. No one's going to check in 3 years what you wrote in essay number 2. But they kind of want to see that you have a plan, and then they're going to assess, is this plan realistic? Okay, another kind of common mistakes that we see, and this is probably the most common, is actually the career goals is also common. I've seen a lot of candidates who just mention these very vague career goals. But mistakes are in the essays. Okay, and these are just some mistakes I've seen this year doing DING analysis, doing analysis on candidates who didn't work with ARINGO, who applied to top schools and just didn't get in. So the first one sounds obvious. Remember the question I mentioned before, why MBA and why now? Bang, 500 words about someone, and his past and his future, but nothing about the why MBA. That's a big mistake. Answer the question. Answer it very clearly. Okay, make sure you're answering the question high up in the essay. Okay, I want an MBA because I want to change my career from a programmer to product management. And now let me tell you what I've done to date and why I want the program, maybe why I want you, and what are my career goals. All great, but kind of answer the question. I wrote here too briefly or too lengthily. Okay, do that as well. Generic. This is where I slow down and smile when someone says, can I use AI? I think I have a bullet about AI as well. But, AI and, other tools just write very generic things. Okay. So I want an MBA because I want to progress to better jobs. I want an MBA because I want a strong business foundation. Schools have seen this a gazillion times. Okay. Let's be a bit more specific, a bit more personal. Remember that I told you that the school fit is super important, and most top MBA programs will put an emphasis on your character, on team effort, team spirit. And, if someone's kind of all about me, you might be super impressive, but it's just not the kind of candidate we're looking for at London Business School or at, Harvard. I remember I interviewed once a candidate. He had the 780 in the old GMAT. I think that's great. He had the 4.0 GPA. He was a Big Four accountant, but he was very arrogant and very boring. And I just felt he was like, he kind of felt it you know, why shouldn't someone accept him kind of thing? You know, he's so great and so wonderful. And I just said, so boring. Okay. And so arrogant. And I just wouldn't want someone like you in my study group. I would find it very hard to work with someone like you. I don't think you're a team player. So again, I put here like personal reflection, kind of understanding what you did better, worse, you know, etc. And this is what we kind of said before, kind of answering the question. But in this case, it's not just answering the question. I think even if you're not asked, why do you want an MBA and why do you want their MBA, you should answer that anyway. So let's say the question is, what are your career goals? I think a good answer would be, my career goals are, okay, so we're answering the question in paragraph number 1. And in paragraph number 2, we could say, in order for me to achieve them, I really feel I need an MBA because A, B, C, D, E. I want to study finance deeper and then connect that to my technology experience and you know, be able to build my fintech, which I described in paragraph 1. And from the research I've done, INSEAD is the best place to do this because INSEAD has, you know, something. So, and now is the best time. So I really think that this why MBA, why now, and why your school should kind of be reflected in any, not in all answers, but in any application per school. So even if the school, you know, Harvard used to have one essay, they changed it last year, but used to have one essay and used to say like, you know, what do you want to tell the class kind of thing. Like, basically tell me whatever you want. Very open-ended essay. And I think these factors need to come in any case. What I don't like about essay, and I've seen time and time again, I actually, there's one other thing that this reminds me, is when someone repeats the resume. Okay, so it's a bit like in an interview. When someone asks you, well, this isn't an interview session, but when you're asked in an interview, walk me through your resume, usually your interviewer has the resume in front of them. So if you're just reading out the resume, that, you know, that's a waste of time. But if you're explaining the changes you've done, the moves that you've done, why you chose a certain career path, why you moved jobs, why you chose your university, things like that, that's kind of the explanation. And that's the same thing with the essays. You don't need to kind of repeat the details. They have the resume. You need to kind of explain the moves that you did. I said that this reminded me something. I've also seen in essays which are why us, okay, so where you need to kind of explain to Berkeley why you want to go to Berkeley, or even when there isn't that essay, but you're smart, you listen to this presentation, and you know you need to kind of explain to Berkeley why you want their school. And that's smart, that's good. But what isn't good is a shopping list. A shopping list is when someone says, this is why I want Berkeley. These are the clubs I want to join. Bang, 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 bang. These are the professors I want to be in their class. Bang, 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 bang. And that's what I call a shopping list. When someone just mentions things because they want Berkeley to see that you've done research. But that has the research part, but zero thinking. So instead of mentioning 8 things which are connected to Berkeley, yes, 4 professors and 4 clubs, I actually would prefer you to mention 1 or 2, but to go deeper into them and explain why each of those, why a specific professor is what you want to, where you want to go to and how is that connected. So I want to go to London Business School because of Professor Kostas Markides, who's a management innovation professor. And I've read his book about the game changer, about, I can't remember, Scandinavian startups. And I'm really interested in this because I want to create a startup in the future and I don't want to make the mistakes that he described in the book. You know, so that kind of is better than saying, I want to go to Professor Kostas Markides, John Mullins, blah, 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 Andrew Lickerman, and now mentioning 5 professors. Okay, because that's just a shopping list. As again, very important self-awareness and also a bit of growth. So a lot of times, you know, I get many CVs and I speak to a lot of candidates, and a lot of times they just have the same job 5 years. Now, I get it. A lot of times you're in employers who don't promote you every year. That would be amazing. But sometimes you're just in places, I don't know, that you just can't get promoted or there's no, you know, professional growth. Even then, you can show personal growth. You can go and volunteer. You can work on your ventures. Um, you can maybe get more responsibilities at work, 4 or 5 years. I'm sure you can. So, and to show some self-awareness, um, and even between job moves, and you can say, yeah, I went to this company and actually I just discovered I don't like big organizations so well, so I decided to kind of go to a startup or something like that. So again, the essays are super important. I kind of mentioned AI as well. AI is great. I love AI. Who doesn't use AI? Okay. But so generic, I don't have any AI tools. I can usually tell an AI essay very quickly, and not because you can tell it right as a human, okay? But the content is just very, very plain. And this needs to be very personal, very specific, a bit original, highlighting your strengths, and explaining different moves that you did that are written in the resume, but now you're explaining those moves. This is a topic that sometimes people tell me, well, it's out of my control. No, it's in your control. You are choosing the recommenders. So don't choose someone who we don't think is interesting. Um, I have another presentation where I kind of ask the audience, um, which is the best recommender, and I have like a school teacher, a professor, a minister that knows my family, and the CEO of my company. Now, the right answer is your boss. Because the minister, maybe you know some kind of celebrity, a minister, or some kind of CEO who knows the company, but he's never worked with you. The CEO of the company, that's very fancy, but he doesn't work with you. What you want to do is to bring your manager or your manager's manager, but someone who worked with you and can basically say one thing. I've managed 3 people. Shimri Winters is the best because A, B, C, D. Because remember, schools have a very, tough decision to make. They have to compare a lawyer, an accountant, a programmer. This is very hard. And to compare their recommender's recommendation, impossible. So what they want to see is that you're just the best in what you do. So don't go for someone too senior. Go for someone who can give, obviously, if they're senior, it's great, but go for someone who can give specific examples of interaction with you. So again, don't select someone that didn't work closely with you. That's a mistake. The recommendations, again, you don't have much control on the text, but you do have control on who you choose. And you can kind of help your recommender, give them some bullets. Um, they really need to go into detail. This is a huge task, so be sure that you recommend the right people. A recommendation can be 2,000 words for some schools. Okay, so this is someone who doesn't just say um, Shimri's 3 biggest strengths are he's smart, he's a people person, and he works very hard. No, the answer is he's smart, he's a people's person, he works very hard. Here's an example that shows all 3. In 2024, blah, 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 COVID, blah, 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 I gave him a lot of ownership, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, this is a long answer. And usually there's between 4 to 6 questions to your recommenders. Each one can be sometimes 500 words long. This is a huge project, huge task. Choose your recommenders smartly. Again, not celebrities, people who can give specific examples on working with you. Okay. So this is kind of a regular things that I've seen. Okay, there's no specific topic, but this is the interview, and then last slide where I gave some generic mistakes. So I used to interview. I interviewed tens of candidates to London Business School. Okay, and I've seen so many mistakes. I really don't even know how to start. The interview is critical. Okay, let's say you've been filtered out of thousands of candidates to receive an interview. Okay, I'm not saying your application so far doesn't count, but I'm telling you that if the interview was bad, you're out. Okay, I don't have to say this again. If the interviewer didn't give you a good score, you haven't passed. Okay, so the interview is a critical part of this application. You have to, treat it respectfully. We do interview prep, contact us and we'll help you. So you have to be very clear, like read your application and be very clear to explain why MBA and your career goals. because this is again what they're looking for. Remember that employability and the motivation for the MBA are very important for the program. Um, I've seen so many mistakes, too long answers, too short answers, people not answering the questions properly, uh, not knowing the specific program. Okay, again, MIT, oh, it's great. Yes, if I don't get into Harvard, no. Explain to me why MIT is great and why it's your number one school. And this is obviously hard, but authenticity is hard. But that's part of the interviewer's mission to kind of check, is everything that you told us, is it correct? So I think that's just a very important to know. Again, I think I was trying to say watch my video on how to prepare for MBA interviews, not what my video, but okay, we love spelling mistakes. And okay, like there's a lot of information on this. Again, I have a huge video on MBA interviews. Prepare answers using the star format. I think on my video I kind of emphasize that a bit more and have a different suggestion for format, but definitely prepare in advance some stories about your biggest achievement and biggest failure and a team situation, and come kind of enthusiastic. You see how I am energetic and enthusiastic, and thank you so much. Colombia is my number one choice. I'm so excited to be here. Kind of that's the spirit that you need to be in. Obviously, explain to them that Colombia is your number one, and maybe a day later explain how Kellogg is your number one. That's fine. It's all part of the game. But you have to get to this game. Okay, so I kind of try to put here a bit of a timeline. Maybe pause this and kind of look at it a bit more. But basically, I wanted to explain that the MBA process is kind of, you have to start thinking, or even a go, no go kind of thing, which is around 2 years before you actually want to start studying. And the main reason is the GMAT and GRE. Okay, this can take 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months. This can just take a long time to maximize your score, and that's what you really want to do. Working with us on your application can take 3 months, 4 months. So if we're applying in round 1 in September, you really want to contact us in May or June. If we're applying round 2, September or October. And you have to take that time into account as well. Doing things rushed. I did this presentation quite rushed, sorry. And you saw I had a spelling mistake, okay? Like a bit embarrassing. So doing things rushed can cause issues, okay? And we definitely don't want a stupid spelling mistake in an application, or worse than that, some other kind of mistake. So again, you can look at this timeline. Okay, my last slide, just a bit of a summary, but I think the first one joins the previous slide very nicely. It takes time, start early, everything. Mainly your GMAT and GRE prep, but even the application itself, the recommendations, don't wait till the last minute. I've seen so many panics. Oh no, my recommender is in Thailand on holiday. Because you were applying in round 2, bang, it was on Christmas, and you only asked him on the 20th of December. Oh no, my recommender actually doesn't feel so comfortable in recommending me. Oh no, this was a story from last year. I spoke to my recommender. He actually told me to write some bullets for him about my, he looked at the question, he said, just write some bullets about your achievement and failure and things like that. When I wrote him some bullets, he answered me one line, I don't really remember things that way. I'll write my own recommendation. So I want the recommender to write his own recommendation, but I think that was quite a red flag when he said, oh, I didn't remember things that way. So, everything you have to do in advance. And of course, ask for help. There's a reason why there's a company like ours. Sorry, there's a reason why we charge money, and we're professionals. This is what we do for a living. And you want to be as competitive, I want to say you kind of get one chance. I know there's some reapplicants, but you kind of get one chance. You're going to do this once. You're going to try and get into the best possible school. You're going to try and get the most maximum scholarship that you can. Do this properly. Start in advance. Work with professionals. Apply the best application that you can. Um, and another thing, don't, play the game I said before, which is showing the school that they're your number one. Yes, that's important, but still be authentic, okay? Because if you kind of lie and lie and lie, it will pop up in the interview. If so you just wasted your time and the school's time, okay? Or if you're trying to make something up, it will pop up. Schools, this is their this is what they do for a living, screening applicants. So be very clear on what you've done to date and even on your weaknesses, okay? Let's say you haven't managed anyone. That's fine. I've seen lawyers with 10 years of experience or software engineers with 5 years of experience who haven't managed people. That's fine. Be clear about that. Don't need to make it up. Be clear about that. Think maybe your interviewer is an alumnus who worked in the same industry or even in the same company as you. Or maybe he studied in the same university as you. So that's a shame that you kind of lied about the club that you founded and he knows there's no such club. Okay, so be very authentic, be clear, self-aware. Okay, if you have any weaknesses, definitely mention them and try and explain to the school why you're a special candidate. So good luck. I hope this presentation helped. Always feel free to check us out on aringo.com and send us your resume and GMAT score if you want a free profile evaluation. You have our details here. Good luck and see you in our next videos and hopefully see you in the MBA world shortly. Bye for now.